So, can the robots and AI accurately track and predict the stock market? And moreover, can the robots and AI accurately track and predict what the Fed is going to do? So, that's the subject of today's video. And if you're a computer geek and data nerd like myself, you will enjoy today's video. We'll talk about this and other topics going around the market. This is really interesting. It's coming from Bloomberg, and it says here, what 60,000 headlines say about the Fed's next move. And again, this is talking about robots essentially reading the news. This is a visualization of this. So they call this the Fed Speak Index, and it's basically tracking the Fed in the past, I guess, this couple of years, going from hawkish to dovish. You can see the sort of trend line there. And again, it's looking at all these headlines. And if you've ever thought or suspected that the Fed is like flip-flopping all the time, you know, that they're saying one thing one time and saying nothing another time, and you're wondering like, am I crazy or is the Fed crazy? Well, the answer is you're not crazy. The Fed be crazy. This is actually, I think how you read this one, the ones on the bottom here are the more dovish headlines, and the ones on the top here are the more hawkish headlines, meaning the Fed speak does change, and this is actually tracking it. It's really interesting. Moreover, again, if you're the data and computer geek like myself, you'll find this also interesting. This is sort of how this Fed Speak Index thing works, how they train the AI slash algos. So number one, you got to create a training set. So for those of you who are in social science, you would understand this kind of stuff. So essentially, you're looking at headlines and you're saying, okay, this would be like a -1, this would be a +2, etc., like hawkish or dovish, and sort of figuring out a way to code the material so the AI can understand it. Then you're going to train it even more. So that's to train the natural language program algorithm. And then you're going to be reading, seeing what the Fed official says, right? That goes to the Bloomberg reporter, who then, reports it with said headlines. So it's actually kind of interesting. So there are human elements in there because you have to train the AI, and then you're also relying on that the reporters, accurately say what the Fed says, right? And then number 5, then the natural language program reads the headlines, and then it creates your index. So I think it's actually really interesting, and also shows where we are in terms of using, again, AI and robots for markets. Now, the Fed is actually going to speak again. I think it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe, this week. I don't think anything is going to change in terms of interest rates. They'll probably stand pat. They could theoretically talk about raising. I don't think they're going to raise. I just think they're going to stand pat. But the expectations in the market have changed. You guys can see this. So before, people, for whatever reason, I thought people be crazy. We're thinking, we're going to do like 4 or 5, maybe 10 rate cuts. Like it was like ludicrous amounts. And I kept saying they're probably not going to do anything this year. It's looking like I'm probably right. But we were talking about this community for a long time. So you guys know that we've been expecting this. And moreover, I just wanted to mention, and again, because the subject is, can the robots, read the news and accurately predict what's going on and what the Fed is saying? If you ever watch the markets live while the Fed is speaking, or any sort of major event like that, markets can get really jittery, and it's fascinating because markets will react like within milliseconds of when the Fed says something. So I've always found that fascinating, and something that I just want to mention with you, because it just shows like how our markets are so run by algos these days. So this is the methodology they use to create this Fed Speak Index here. And it says here, the Fed Speak Index is an NLP index that aims to quantify the Fed's communication sentiment. We employ a machine learning model, fine-tuned and trained on thousands of human-labeled annotations of Bloomberg News headlines on Fed officials' communications, set to mimic our interpretation of the text. So this is actually interesting, right? So can you train a robot to read a bunch of stuff and then sort of like interpret it the way that we would / humans? Obviously, it depends who's training the said thing, right, and how you set up the coding. It says here as well, the sample covers more than 6,200 unique speaking engagements and statements made by the FOMC members since 2009, totaling more than 60,000 Bloomberg News headlines. After filtering the headlines for relevancy, the NLP algorithm was applied to 47,000 relevant headlines. The algorithm, get this, is 71% accurate, they say, at scoring headlines between hawkish, dovish, and neutral. So I guess there's kind of, your 3. So I think neutral is probably going to be your 0, and then your hawkish, dovish will be maybe, plus or minus 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. Then it says that 96% of the scores are within 1 point of true reading. So it's actually really interesting. If you've ever tried to trade the market and stuff like that, you'll know that things can be wildly unpredictable. And our current markets are frankly really nuts. And this is something I mention to you all the time, guys, is that if you don't want to mess with that kind of stuff, just buy an S&P 500 kind of thing, and you'll know you're getting everything. You don't have to worry about picking winners and losers. It's true, you're not going to quadruple your money in a day, because some of our stocks in the market do ridiculous things in one day, but over time you will build wealth, right? So this is kind of, and I'll get into this sort of how this ETF buying or basket buying works in the markets, because there's another headline that's related to this stuff. And I want to illustrate this point today because our markets are really wild. If you're watching it today, the big one was Tesla moved up. I made a video just on that. Elon Musk went to China. It was completely surprising, right? I was like, okay, what's he doing over there? And it's like suddenly the stock moves up. And when I see this kind of stuff, I mean, our markets feel like a casino, to be really frank. Companies of this size shouldn't move in that way. The same way that Google is going to the downside in crazy ways. So what's interesting though is like if you add up the percentages, like Tesla's going up, and you take and then you take the percentage that maybe Google is going down, you may end up as a push, right? But this is sort of why you end up buying a basket of things. This particular one, this chart here is done by market cap, so by size of the companies. This one is done by sector. So it's interesting because even though our markets are showing green across the board, you can see it wasn't necessarily so. Some things are red, some things are green. So it is hard to predict exactly what every single company, every single sector is going to do. And also too, you're competing against the robots, and that's why I brought up the discussion is can the robots accurately do it? In fact, I can tell you though they do react more fast than we do, and they move the big money around. Moreover, regarding moving the big money around, there was an interesting thing here where it was saying, I'll just read the headline here. It says stocks trade for 390 minutes a day, increasingly only 10 matter. So talking about minutes. The basic gist of it is that because people are, just like, what, I'm not going to do individual stock picking. I'm just going to buy your baskets, your index funds, etc. A lot of these funds will purchase at the end of the day. And this was saying here increasingly more and more. So this is the last 10 minutes, right? So this is this black area here is like a third of all the transactions, etc. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Moreover, I wanted to share with you guys as well, going back to here regarding the Tesla thing. Sometimes though, individual stocks, something like this, really sort of, how can I say, attract the attention of many, retail and possibly institutional investors. We don't know the breakdowns like on the day by day. I can tell you in terms of like overall how many institutions and individuals, but I can just tell you like overall I can tell you like what it is, but not like exactly the day, what percentage of institutions or retail we're buying. What I can tell you though was interesting is that in terms of the money moving around the markets, because I think people are going in heavily in derivatives, these kind of things, there's a massive amounts of money flowing every single day. So today, for example, Tesla moved up quite a bit, and I can see it was like 47 billion worth of money being changed hands with the volume changing, right? Or the volume of Tesla stock passing. And then how many shares are traded today was 242 million. So quite a bit. It's actually really nuts and insane. A lot of this is done by algorithms, but also too, Tesla is one of the popular retail stocks. So again, if you don't want to mess with that stuff, you can just do the basket thing. We talked about this. I said you can just get an index fund, something like that. Because oftentimes people say, Chris, just tell me what to do with my money. I'll just say this: I don't want to manage your money. I do want you to be informed and educated, right? But I don't necessarily want to like tell you exactly what to do all day, every day, because it's your money and you have to decide what makes sense for you. I just try to keep you informed on sort of how our markets and our systems work. In terms of what was going up and down today, so consumer discretionary was big, so I think that was probably due to Tesla. Communications were down, and that was probably due to Google. And then you can see here financial services was down a little bit as well. So this does actually vary when we take a look at this all the time. And when you get used to looking at these things, you'll start to be more comfortable with seeing these numbers and what we're talking about here. Equal weight was the big winner today, and then quality was down a bit. Moreover, we actually had this really interesting headline regarding WeWork. We've been tracking this stuff, and this is important to the commercial real estate market stuff. So basically, WeWork had this big meltdown. You guys know this. And Adam Newman, so that was a dude who basically parted away all the money. If you haven't seen there's a WeWork documentary out there, but please watch it. It's pretty funny. He really did party away all the money. And actually, he ended up with a golden parachute. I can't remember how much money he got, but the company goes bankrupt, Chapter 11, and he runs away with a whole bunch of money. He comes back and tries to buy the company in like a rework of WeWork. So that's funny. But I guess that they're trying to push him out, so I guess he's not part of the deal. And I guess we're talking about, was this $450 million they're trying to negotiate. The basic gist of it is this company does have real assets, but you're trying to restructure it because the way that things are structured now, places may not be able to make payments. It's got to be approved. So I guess they got some sort of deal or something, but it's got to be approved by the courts, and we'll see whether or not Adam Newman sues and like, why'd you kick me out of the deal? Who knows? But I do want to bring this up because I think you'll see a lot of these kind of things sort of proceeding as we see more problems in commercial real estate. In the world of crypto, and I like to talk about lots of different things on this channel. Bitcoin's been struggling a little bit. It's been taking a dip the last couple weeks or so. We just had the halving. Bitcoin is currently trading at 63,000. If you guys track this thing, so basically it's kind of right there. The last 3 years, that's sort of where it's been. Whether or not it goes up, I'm sure the bulls will tell you yes. But I will tell you the truth on this thing. Optimism in crypto is down, and I mean that literally. So we talked about this actually a couple weeks ago. There's a thing called optimism crypto. It is a real thing. It's optimism crypto, and I guess it's totally OP. And it was down about 11% today. That was the biggest loser on the day. So when optimism is down in crypto, you know it's not good. And this is an interesting one because some people were saying, I was reading through this stuff, is like saying, well, crypto's down because the economy's down and stuff like that. And it's funny because the crypto bulls always try to tell you that crypto's in its own universe and it's supposed to operate separately from the U.S. system and banks, etc. I don't think so. It just, when I watch it, it just seems to just trade the same as tech. Whether or not it ends up being completely its own thing and just goes up no matter what, we'll see. But I'm not into this stuff, and also too, I can see the optimism is down. One thing that's actually really interesting is the dollar's been crazy strong. Now, it did weaken a little bit recently. So the big story has been the Japanese yen, actually. So if you've been tracking this one, I think it's like, is it like 2-decade low, or it's like since like the lowest, the yen is the lowest since like 1990 kind of thing. So it's like 3-decade thing kind of thing. And essentially 160 was the key number, I guess, but people were watching. It's currently trading at 156. I think there was a holiday, it was like the Golden Week. And so, trading was light and then it rebounded, but, will it come back? Who knows? This is actually a really big story. I know maybe in the USA, you guys don't talk about this stuff that much. But when you're outside the USA, currency, it's a huge thing. Since 2020, so this is on the 5-year chart. I was just looking at this. The dollar has really gained on the Japanese yen by like 42%. When I was in Japan, because I used to live in Japan, I remember the dollar was like around, maybe 117 or like 120, something like that. But like 156, 160, it's like ludicrous. So we'll see if this recovers. I can tell you guys, we're in Korea right now. I always mention this. I'm watching for the 1400 in Korea. So that was sort of the right now the dollar is really, really strong compared to Korean won. And 1375, I think that's fantastic if you have dollars, of course. But 1400 is kind of like, is it going to go beyond that? Who knows? Now, why do we track this stuff? Well, Japan is a major world economy, and you don't want them to have a meltdown, right? Because we already know China's in the midst of a meltdown, and you have Japan looking not so great right now. And so that certainly has an impact on the USA. You can't dismiss this stuff. So you're talking about the number 2 and number 3 economies in the world. That's why I'm showing you guys this. If you take a look at this is a visual chart just to give you kind of a sense of where we are. There's USA, there's China, there's Japan. It's not small, and then we are in Korea. So if you're curious, because I'm in Korea, we track this stuff. So Korea is currently the 13th largest economy ranked by in the world, ranked by GDP. Moreover, when you talk about these things, guys, we're all connected. So I'll give you an example here. Because the Japanese, yen is so cheap, everyone's going to Japan. It's pretty funny because I keep hearing from friends that have been recently, like it's like super, super crowded because, usually it's not like that. Usually, the yen is pretty strong. But the problem is that, again, we're all connected. So yes, it may seem great in the short term that you can go visit Japan and things are cheap and you go buy cameras and whatever you're going to buy over there. But remember, we want to keep things in balance. That's the goal of this stuff, because think of it this way. If you're in Hawaii, and just for example, and your businesses rely on Japanese tourism, those tourists may not come back just because, just think about this. In the last 5 years, everything in USA suddenly became 42% more expensive just because, and plus inflation or whatever. So it's just not worth it to go to Hawaii, right? You're paying, in some places maybe double what it would have been a few years ago. And so I want you guys to understand sort of why we track this. So one reason would be we can't just have Japan completely melt down. It's not great. Think of it this way. What if you work in a company? So for example, I have a friend in LA. He works for a Japanese company. They make like laser printers, and they print up like signs. So he goes to Japan quite frequently, and then he comes back, and then they're making deals like laser signs, something like that. Or for example, let's say you work in auto, and you're a company like Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, whatever, and you're hoping that Japan comes and invests more in USA and create more jobs, etc. But they can't really do that so easily if the currency isn't favorable for them. Certainly true that for Americans, maybe you can buy imports coming in more readily, right, from Asia, for example, because the dollar's strong. But you may have struggles trying to sell your products to other countries if their currencies are weak, or if their currencies are weak, they may have trouble like buying oil and food, which are often traded in dollars. So these things do matter. I know, like I said, in USA, you might not necessarily like feel it right away. It just depends what industry you're in, etc. But do track this. You don't want necessarily the Japanese yen collapsing. Essentially, the problem is they just have growth worries over there. We have the same worries here in Korea, the same worries in China, and you also worry about population actually shrinking. So it's not so different around the world. I mean, you have these worries in the USA, just it becomes more pronounced in Japan. They've been sort of in a doldrums for an awful long time. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up. I think it's a big story. There's always things to track around the market. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on what you think about the AI algorithm thing and how accurate you think it'll predict or track the market / the Fed. And also, too, what are your thoughts on the WeWork one? I think that's a fun one as well. So thanks again for watching, everyone. I love and appreciate you coming back every day. And I'll catch you next video.